All right, so hello everybody. We are going to be going over understanding the sales contract today. Basically, I'm going to go over the sales contract in detail. I'm going to kind of go one by one. As a sales contract, this is what you put together in an offer. It's the most critical part to real estate. The way you put your offer together can also be based off of many different things to have your offer won, negotiations, all of that. So you want to make sure that you fill it out completely, clearly, and have all the proper documentation, which is the contingencies, attached to it, so that you're more likely to have a better success in getting your offer won. Now, with the sales contract, you have basically the top part. You always want to make sure that you fill out the different parties. You want to make sure that you have the offer date. Make sure always that the date is correct. Sometimes people will delay on, signing or whatnot. You want to make sure that the dates line up. Can I have that right there so I can just go down? I'll admit anybody else. All right. Now, with the real property, usually when you are in SkySlope and for any other agents, whatever whatever system you use as forms, you will be able to pull the MLS on there, and it will be able to pull all of this section that's going to be kind of right here when it comes to the tax ID and whatnot. Now, when you're going down, sales price, you always want to make sure that all of the parts you fill in. Now, the parts that you don't fill in, always throw a 0 in there, because you don't want somebody to accidentally add something at another time and then you guys can contest it, okay? Now, when it comes down to seller subsidy and then seller payment towards buyer broker compensation, this part, which is E, 2E, is what is new after the lawsuit last year. So within the past year, this is a new area. Now, seller subsidy is a credit that a seller can give to a buyer, whether it's $5,000 towards a new HVAC system, or anything that they want to give them, that is going to reduce the seller's net by a certain amount. Now, seller payment towards buyer broker compensation, that can be in the form of an amount or a percentage. So if it's 2.5%, then you put 2.5. But remember, D and E are going to be separate, okay? Now, financing contingency. This right here means that it is contingent upon financing. That covers your buyer if something happens. For example, if they lose their job during the time that they're under contract and they don't qualify for the house anymore, then they can back out and get their EMD. Now, appraisal contingency. An appraisal contingency basically just means that it is contingent upon an appraisal. Okay. Now, if it is contingent upon appraisal, let's say the house is $400,000. If the appraisal comes at, let's say, $390,000, okay, that means that you have to have a talk with the seller and say, hey, the appraisal came down lower. Okay. And that's where the negotiations will be for appraisal. It came down lower. Now, if there is no appraisal contingency, keep in mind, an appraisal will still be done by the bank. If it's not contingent, that has nothing to do with anything. That doesn't mean the bank is not going to do an appraisal. The bank will still do an appraisal. But let's say the contract price is going to be $400,000. If the appraisal comes at $390,000, that $10,000 difference, the buyer is now responsible for paying that difference, okay? The seller is not obligated to drop the contract price because it's not contingent upon an appraisal anymore. All right? Now, if it is not contingent upon an appraisal, okay, this part right here means, this part right here means that even if it's not contingent upon appraisal, the seller is still going to give access for an appraiser to come, because remember, they're still going to do it. All right. All right. So buyer representation right over here. Okay. Now, if a buyer is going to live in the property as their principal residence, the buyer will occupy. That means that that is their principal residence. Their interest rate is going to reflect that. Now, if the buyer is not going to occupy that as their principal residence, that means that it is possibly an investment property for that buyer. Their interest rate with their lender can reflect that. Okay, so this is a very important box to check. Now, when it comes to deposits, okay, for the EMD, buyer will be in the amount of, and it's usually about 1%. You can go higher, you can go lower, whatever you guys agree upon with your client, with the other party, okay? Now, usually it's going to be right here. We always do the settlement agent, at least in our brokerage. Hello. We do the settlement agent, okay? Oops. Hold on a second. Okay, we do the settlement agent. Our brokerage does not hold EMD checks. Usually goes directly to the title company. Okay, and then you can choose here, has delivered or will deliver, and it's usually 5 business days from the date of ratification. That is the most you can. Now, if you want to make your offer stronger, you can put 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but it cannot go past 5 days. Okay? Now, for settlement date, that is the date of closing. This right here, you need to talk. If you are working with a lender, then you need to talk to the lender. Is this going to be a 30-day close? Can it be a 21-day, 25-day? The lender that you're working with will tell you exactly how many days. Time is of the essence, usually with closing. How many days they can settle, okay? Now, if you have cash, you need to see with, the title company, how fast they can get whatever paperwork and documentation they need. You can do a 7-day, 10-day, 14-day. You have to be talking, communicating with either the lender or the title company if it's cash or you have a loan, okay? Now, buyer's notice to seller, okay? The seller agent, okay, that is going to be your title company. When you are working with a seller, sometimes sellers have a preferred title company they want to use. So you need to talk to the other agent. You need to see if they have a preferred. If not, you ask your client if they have a preferred settlement agent they want to use. You can always recommend. We cannot force anybody to use any specific title company, right? Now, when it comes to delivery, all right, delivery will basically be the communication between the two parties. So if you come down here to 2A, you have mail. Nobody really uses mail anymore, okay? Fax, I think nobody uses fax. Most of the time it's email. That's the fastest and quickest way to get it. So you're going to go here to the seller, and you will basically put who the seller, usually that's their agent. You'll put the agent's information. And for the buyer, if you're working on the buyer side, then you're going to put your email right here. That way, every single person a part of it, your buyer, your seller, and all the agents know this is how we communicate between buyer and seller, okay? Now, when it comes to the residential property disclosure, all right, the property disclosure is basically a form that you have your seller sign. It basically says that they know if there's something wrong with the house, they have to disclose it. If there's something leaking, the roof is leaking, the sump pump is leaking, a toilet's leaking, they have to do their due diligence and they have to disclose it to the party that's buying because that can alter their decision on purchasing a property, okay? Now, the resale, this is going to be your HOA and your condo, okay? So if you are working, okay, with a buyer, you have to see if the property is going to be in a condo association, okay, or if it's going to be in an HOA. You do have places in this area that have neither one of them. So if it's going to be within a property association right here, that's going to be your HOA, is or is not. And then if it is in a condo right here. Now, if you have something that has neither, you leave that blank. Okay, is not, well, not blank, but you put is not, is not. It's not located in a HOA, is not located within a condo. Now, if it is, you will basically can put here the days that you have. So you can put here, we choose to receive the documents within 5 days, 3 days, whatever you choose to put. That means that you have 5 days from the day that you go under contract, okay? Well, the day that you receive the actual HOA and condo to have your client, which is your buyer, review all of the association or HOA documents and make a decision if they want to stay in that contract. Now, if it's left blank, right here, it's going to say, if time frame is left blank, it defaults to 3 days. It used to be 3 days default no matter what. But now if you choose to have more time, you can do that. Usually when you receive HOA or condo documents, we receive it from the listing agent, and what we will do is we will literally forward it on over. Okay, we'll look at it and make sure, see if there's violations or whatnot, but we forward it over to our buyers, and our buyers are the ones that have to do the due diligence, review everything. If you're in a condo association and they say you can't paint your door pink and the buyer wants to paint their door pink, then guess what? They have the right to back out because something that they like in there is not to their liking, and they can walk away and get their EMD back. Okay, so this is what will protect them. All right, property maintenance and condition. So this is going to be what we call a home inspection. All right, now you can do 2 kinds. You can do right here. You can do from the data offer or for the data home inspection. Normally we do the data offer. So if we do the data offer, or at least that's what I choose, that's what I see common. Usually I do 7 days. So I'll put here 7 days, and well, that's going to be on the contingency, the addendum that will come there after. So it's usually 7 days. From the day that we go under contract, we have 7 days. Try to get it done sooner than later, because what happens is you want to have your, let's say on day 2, you do the home inspection, and usually takes anywhere from maybe 24 to 40 hours to get the report back. Your client can review it. If there's things on the home, it still gives your client time to review and then back out if they need. Okay. Now, this box right here is contingent, and then this one is not. Okay. Now, if you decide to make it contingent, all right, then you will basically have a contingency, the home inspection contingency addendum that is going to follow the contract after. If it's not, there's nothing else that you need because they are waiving, okay? They're not going to be doing a home inspection at all. All right. Now, if it's not contingent, okay, seller will not provide access to anybody. We have had things, happen before in the past where they say, oh, it's not contingent upon a home inspection. We need to go in there and take some measurements. Okay, we've had an additional person go in there, take measurements, and they're there for 30 minutes to an hour because they're doing a unauthorized home inspection. All right, and then they'll find ways to back out. Maybe, HOA documents, they can back out using that, but it was really because of home inspection. Okay, now, however, if checked, the seller will provide, okay, the buyer, broker, a licensed, whatever, professional, whoever, okay, access to conduct a home inspection, okay, whoops. So, if it's not contingent a home inspection and they still want to have a home inspection done, they at least need to let them know. It's not contingent, we're not going to use it as a way to back out, but we still want to do one. And you will still provide access to us to do one. Make sense? Okay. All right. So, utilities. Always pay attention to this, because what happens is you want to make sure that you know if it's public water, public sewer, because if it's a private well, okay, or septic, you're going to need to have a septic and well contingency in there, especially if you're having a loan for the lender, to make sure that you do a septic and well inspection. Okay. But then also right here, you're going to need to also make sure that you know how many, usually the listing will say how many bedrooms that septic and well is for. It's not mandatory, but it's just good to put as much information in there. You want to have a complete offer together to send over to the listing agent, better chances if your offer can be won or negotiations can happen. Because if you send a half done offer and then you have another person that sends a full offer that everything is correct, they're going to go with the person that got it right the first time. Even if the price is there, they might come and negotiate, or they'll just tell you, hey, please complete this and send it back. Okay. So just try to make sure that every single thing, remember all of this other stuff right here, we cannot as agents change any of the verbiage that's in a contract at all. All we can do is fill in the blank. That's it. That's literally all we can do. So it's super easy to just go in and make sure that every single place that we need to do something is complete. Okay. Also, in our brokerage, you have many, many people that can help you. Okay. If you are being coached, whoever it is, have a coach review your offer before you send it. Have your team lead, whoever you're working with. And if you are not on a team or you're not being coached, you still have plenty of people that you can say, hey, can we get on Zoom, or can we just take, some time to look at this before you send your offer off. All right. Now, this is going to be very important right here. And this has been not a big issue, but it has run into some hiccups over the years for people that I've seen. If you're an agent, please make sure that you fill this out correctly. Me personally, I was a listing agent for a house and I put that they had an additional fridge because it was in the garage. And we had 2 fridges, one inside, one out. When the buyers went to the final walkthrough, okay, the second fridge was gone, even though the paperwork said it was going to be there. The husband didn't know, he forgot somehow, and he took it. He had to return it. If he didn't return it, the contract stated what? 2 fridges were going to be left. So if he didn't return it, we had to give them the equivalent of that fridge in money as a credit at closing. Okay. Everything that you mark here, please, please, please make sure. A lot of agents, if you go onto MLS, when you're writing their offer, if you look in the notes section, the document section, there is a part in there that will literally have offer sheet. And it will tell you the septic and well if they have it. It'll tell you the utilities, and it will tell you every single thing that will convey with it. Okay. Now, other things that might not convey, things that we see is playgrounds in the back, trampolines, ring camera systems, gym equipment. You'll see does convey or does not convey. But when you're putting your offer together, you have to make sure that you add that. Okay, you want to make sure that you add in there everything because you want to make sure that nothing is left. If they have here does convey, ring camera system, and then all of a sudden the house is sold and you do the walkthrough and the camera system's gone, your buyer has the right to ask for a camera system because the camera system was part of the contract. Okay. Fuel tanks. We don't see this too often around here. The further you push south, you might run into it. If there's a fuel tank, they need to know if the fuel tank is leased or the fuel tank is owned. And there will be an addendum with that because if it's leased, sometimes there could be a payment with that. They need to take that over. Okay. And then here you'll have the lease items. For example, ADT. If a seller is selling a home and they have, let's say, 1.5 years left on the ADT system, they might need to turn in that equipment, or the new buyer can pick up that lease and they'll do a transfer. Make sense? But those are things that all have to be disclosed up front. All right. The IRS, the FIRPTA, tax withholding. If you are buying a house from a seller that is a foreign seller, there will be 15% that will be held on behalf of the seller that needs to be filed with the IRS at the end of the year. Because remember, if you're a foreign seller, sometimes you might not pay taxes. Okay. There still needs to be a certain amount that is held.
Yes. Correct question.
Oh, yep.
He says, so if you don't add date to the home inspection section, but check that they will provide access, is that okay? Or do you have to specify?
You have to put dates. Yes. Dates have to be on there for the home inspection. Hold on. Let me go back up. So if you don't put a date, then it will kind of go back to the date of offer. It defaults to date of offer. But then right here, you see right here, property home inspection and or beginning on and ending on. So here needs to be dates too. If you are waiving a home inspection, but you want access to the house, you need to put access will begin on Monday the 10th and then end on Friday the 15th kind of thing. You have to have dates because you just can't go in whenever you want. Is that good? Any other questions? Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay. Where were we? Okay, smoke detectors. This is a big one. I didn't know this when I first started. A lot of people don't know it. If you have smoke detectors that are not working, for example, we caught ours on a, does it say hardwire? Okay, we caught ours on a home inspection. What happened on the home inspection is they ended up, okay, putting home, you know, the ones that you just, the 10-year ones that you can just screw into the wall, into the ceiling. The law is in Virginia is they all have to be hardwired. Okay. So if you do a home inspection, the home inspector should, most of them do, pick up that they need to be installed in accordance with the laws in Virginia. The law in Virginia is that they need to be hardwired. They all need to make sure that if there's a fire, let's say you have a 3-level house. If there's a fire in the basement and the smoke detector in the basement goes off, okay, if you have them hardwired, it's going to send a chain reaction to all of the smoke detectors. So on the 3rd floor, that smoke detector is going to go off too, okay? If they're not hardwired and they're just screwed in and they're battery operated, the ones that are on the 3rd floor is not going to pick up a smoke detector that's going off in the basement. What do you think can happen? That can cause some serious issues if there's a family sleeping on the 3rd floor and a fire starts in the basement, okay? So in accordance with the law, I had this issue where we made the homeowners, because it is their responsibility, to go and change all of it to hardwire and not the cheap route of just going to Costco or Home Depot and getting the ones that are battery operated, okay? Now, lead-based paint. Does everybody know what lead-based paint is? I know people are in the chat. So lead-based paint was a paint that they used to use before 1978. It would crack and it would chip, and then kids would go and they would peel it and they would eat it, and it could cause cancer. A lot of houses has been painted over since 1978. The chances of lead-based paint are still there, but it's very, very low. Okay, so if there is a house that was built before 1978, you need to basically put it was or were, the seller represents that the dwellings at the property were constructed, okay? And basically, they do not waive a risk, okay? And this is where you need to have an addendum attached that they understand that there could be lead-based paint in there, but the homeowner might not have knowledge of it, okay? Now, if they were not constructed before 1978, then the buyer does waive the risk because there's no lead-based paint there. All right? Now, wood destroying insects. So you have to check with the lenders. Some lenders, depending on the loan, might not need a termite inspection. Others do. Okay, you need to be in constant communication with the lender. Now, if you're doing a cash, you don't need a termite inspection at all, right? Termite inspections are usually, what are they, $49 still?
Like 59.
Yeah, 59. Keeps going up. You can throw that at the buyer's expense or at the seller's expense, and that usually gets paid at closing, okay? Now, in the state of Virginia, I will say this. If there is termites in a home, okay, it is the seller's responsibility to get rid of them and fix the damage. When I was selling one of my investment properties, the termites ate a structural beam in the basement. I couldn't remove the beam, but we ended up putting a beam right next to it and fusing it together. And then I had to have treatment for it done as well. Okay, but you cannot throw that on a buyer to fix the damage, and it will say it right here. See right here, any treatment for that basically will be made at seller's expense. Okay? Home warranty. Home warranties are something that is at the buyer's discretion. They can pay for it. They can ask the sellers to pay for it. When the market was very, very hot and we had a lot of people waiving home inspections because they were competing with other offers, the safe bet, in my opinion, was throwing a home warranty on. Under $1,000 for a year, maybe $50 deductible, it's safer. We had one where somebody moved in and all of a sudden the oven wasn't working. They used the home warranty to cover it, okay? So it's safe, but it's all up to the buyer if they want to pay for it. It's usually paid at closing, but you can throw it on the buyers if they're, or you can even ask the sellers to pay 1 year, 2 year, whatever you do. It's all about the negotiation, all right? Now, this one right here, we see this all too often, at least I have. If there is damage or loss of a property while they are under contract, it is the seller's responsibility. We had a few years ago a house. While we were under contract, it was Waleed's house. While we were under contract, a tree fell on the house, straight down the middle. Did it delay settlement? Yes. Could the buyers have backed out? Yes. But it was the seller's responsibility with their, homeowner's insurance to fix that damage. Okay? It's never on the buyers because they don't own that home yet. But again, property by fire, act of God, or any other issue that could arise. I'm just going over the most important ones. Now, avoiding contract. I recently had this. Somebody can always back out of a contract, okay? If they back out using a contingency or they back out with no contingency and they lose their EMD. An example of a contract void is if, for example, the one I had, we didn't close on the time. The buyer was acting a little bit iffy. He didn't want to turn in any documents. It got to closing day and nothing was done. It made the contract void. Did he get his EMD back? Absolutely. Because he was not able to fulfill it. We were not able to close. The contract was then void because we didn't close on the date that it closed. Make sense? Any questions so far? Okay. Now, you're just going to have a bunch of definitions right here, okay? When I am working with my buyers and I'm getting offers together, some agents will basically go through and fill this out and send it to their buyers to sign. I like to jump on a Zoom or jump on a phone call and have them pull it up right then and there. And I go through everything. Remember, all of this information here is standard. We can't change any of that. So I go through it and I kind of tell them the main points that they have. But rather than that, everything that I'm filling out, contract price, I go through everything so that, first of all, they're knowledgeable on the process, but they know exactly what we're offering. Okay. But you need to teach your client how it works. I guarantee you'll have a client come back to you when you teach them. You don't just have them sign anything. You want them to be knowledgeable on exactly what they're signing. All right. Now, real estate license. Okay. I have helped people that have either expired licenses or are licensed in other states buy a house here. They need to be aware, okay? The contract states that every single person, the sellers, everybody needs to be aware that that person does have a license, whether it's in another state or it's previously and it's expired at one point. They did take the class. They do understand they were licensed. All right. Now, additions. So this basically means that in addition to this offer, this is what we are including. These are the forms that are going to go after this. So you'll have an addendum, which is sale, which you can type anything you want in the addendum. Okay. Contingency clauses. This is just standard. There's many different forms. I'm going to have, I think my next class that I'm going to be doing is going to be in October. That is going to be not a contracts class like this one. All it's literally going to be is contingencies. It's just going to be all the contingencies and addendums that's going to be additional to what you would add with this. I'm going to go over a few briefly now, but I'm going to go more in depth. You have an escalation clause, an extension review period for HOA condo, a home inspection notice for FHA, home inspection and radon testing, and then you have lead-based paint, disclosure, contingency, and then new home sales. When you have a new home sale, there's paperwork for that as well. Does anybody know post-settlement and pre-settlement? So post-settlement means it's a rent back. If you are selling the house, most sellers will get their house in the market, sell their house because they want to get the profits from their house, and then they will start looking for another house. So in Virginia, per Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, you have to take control of your property within 60 days of closing. So you can do a post-settlement occupancy for 60 days. There has been people that agree on more than that, but most lenders will say 60 days is the max, okay? Pre-settlement. Pre-settlement is where a buyer wants to move in before closing. That one can be a little tricky. We don't see that too often. Let's say you have a buyer move into the property and something happens and they might not be able to close. Now you have somebody in your house that can't buy your house, and now you have to go through the eviction process. It can put you in a little bit of a bind. So we don't see this one as often as we see the post-settlement, because that's the typical rent back for sellers to be able to sell their home and then get into another home. All right. Then you have, of course, your private well and septic inspection, your residential. This residential property disclosure right here is the most common that needs to be on everything. Even if you have an offer that sometimes has no contingencies or addendums with them, the residential property disclosure should always be there. Okay. Solar panels. This is a big one too. If there are solar panels in the house, some people will buy solar panels outright, but sometimes solar panels can be a 30-year loan that somebody can take out. 15, 30, whatever they agree upon. If the solar panels are in the house, your new buyer should know that moving forward for the next 21 years, they have to make an additional $400 payment towards that solar panel. Make sense? That is a contingency simply because I don't want an extra $400 on something, so I need to know. That is at the buyer's discretion. They have the right to not go into a contract because they see that there's an additional fee every single month for this amount of years. Then, of course, you have the VA, FHA, USDA financing, and then the assumption. Then you have your buyers usually sign, and you send it off to the listing agent. If they agree, then the sellers will sign, and you'll become a ratified contract. Now, this right here, and I see this too often whenever I list homes and I get offers, this is never filled out. This area, this area right here on the listing side, they will just literally put their name and that's it. If you are on the buyer side and you're sending an offer, please fill out as much information. It really helps on the back end for everybody, okay? It really helps, especially for Siobhan, all back end, okay? Now, I'm going to go over the financing, VA, FHA, and conventional. All right, so for a VA, usually right here, of course, this usually auto-populates with the date, the buyer, seller, and then the address. Now, if you're going here, this you want to make sure is filled out over years and then the period. Now, like I said, a lot of agents will not fill this out. They will leave it blank. Fixed, adjustable if you're getting an ARM, 15-year, 30-year loan. And then for me, for example, we don't know what the interest rate could be because, depending on what day they lock in their rate, I just put MKT, whatever market is, whatever the market rate is for that day. Now, as you go down, you're going to have here, 3A, financing contingency with auto extension or the financing contingency with auto expiration. the difference between the two. If you have a 30-day closing, okay, if you put 21 days right here, can you give me some water, please? If you have a 30-day closing, okay, if you put 21 days there, that means that after that 21 days, it will automatically extend to closing until the selling party sends you a notice, thank you, to remove it, okay? Now, if they don't send you anything, and let's say day 25, Lord forbid something happens and your client loses his job and now doesn't qualify, you can still back out and get the EMD. Make sense? So if you have 21 days here, it auto extends to closing unless the other party, the selling party, sends you the notice to remove the financing contingency. Now, this one with the financing expiration, that means that if you have a 30-day closing on day 21, it automatically is done. They don't need to send you anything. That means on day 21, the financing contingency expires. It doesn't extend to closing, it expires. So on day 25, if something happens with your buyer's financing, they lose their EMD and that's it. They can still back out, but their EMD is gone because they can't use financing.
So if we don't want that, what would you put there?
What do you mean?
If we don't want that to happen.
I always go with auto extension.
So you have to pick one.
You have to pick. It's either A or B. Yep. I always go with extension, and then when I send my offer, I'll sometimes see that they cross out extension and they'll put automatic expiration. And of course, we want to get our offer we go with it. But I have to tell my buyers, because if we need a signature that we're switching from extension to expiration, hey, instead of 21 days and then it'll extend to closing, now it will expire. So we need to make sure that the lenders know that it's going to expire so that they have everything that they need and they know, hopefully, we're going to be almost close to closing and the loan should be good. So you'll put 21 here. You can put any day you want. If you want to make your offer, better, you can do 14 days here, or you can do 14 days here. That just lets the sellers know that, hey, they can't back out on a 30-day closing. After 14 days, the financing contingency is done. It's, disadvantage for your buyers, but it's more of a protection for the sellers to know that, hey, they're serious. And if something does happen, then the sellers keep the EMD. Make sense? Now, when it comes to appraisals for the VA, any provision that they have in here, the VA is very, very, very strict. The VA is more strict than FHA and conventional. Okay. They want to make sure that when it comes to the sales price and the appraisal is going to come back in a timely manner. VA appraisals do take a little bit longer. They can take, up to 21 days now? Mm-hmm. Up to 21 days. When the market is hotter, they can take a couple days longer. But with VA appraisals, they're very tight on taking their time sometimes, but also the conditions and provisions that are in there. Now, with negotiation period and election period, let's say the appraisal came back low, right? I usually put 3 and 2. I put 3 days. So if the appraisal came back, if the house is $400,000 and the appraisal came back at, let's say, $390,000, we have a 3-day negotiation period with the seller. We can go back and forth and say, hey, drop the price. The seller can. Now, if they can't figure out in those 3 days, okay, if they're going to drop the price, buyer's election period means if at the end of the negotiation period, okay, the parties are not able to reach an agreement, buyer will have option to void contract by seller by an additional 2 days. So I always put 2. So if they can't negotiate in the 3 days, buyers have an additional 2 days to decide if they want to stay in it. Make sense? So you can put 3 days negotiation in 3 days, or 3 and 2, or 3 and 1. It all depends on, what you decide and the conversation that you have with your clients. All right. Same thing with destroying lender repairs. Now, with the VA, they're very, very big on details when it comes to appraisals. If you have a chip in the paint, I had one in August. The back of the garage that was facing the woods had chipped paint. And the deck had one little area where the wood was rotting, like all the way in the corner. The appraisal literally came back with repairs. The repairs, of course, to the seller and buyer were like, oh, they'll minor, we'll take care of it. They will not go forward unless you go and paint the chipped wood that was showing to the trees, and then fix the piece of wood that was on the railing because it was a little bit rotted, and then you have to submit for a re-inspection for the appraisal.
Who pays for that?
Usually it's the seller.
If the seller doesn't want to pay, then
And the buyer can. We've also had one where the backyard, it was maybe 4 steps from the house to go down. The appraiser decided that it needed a handrail, a security rail to go down. They had to install it before they could give the appraisal report. It's something the appraisers for the VA can give you whatever repair you needed. One I had last year, the shed in the back was dilapidated and they needed to fix the walkway to the shed. And the seller was literally like, I'm not paying for that to be fixed. And the buyer was like, we're going to tear down the shed and remove that walkway anyway. There's no need. So we just had to submit to the appraiser that when the buyer buys it, that is going to be torn down. The walkway is going to be pulled up and it's just going to be just dirt that they're going to put there in the backyard. And he accepted it and he ended up closing his report and sending the appraisal to us. So it all depends on what the repair is, and you'll have to kind of go through that with them. But there can be, required repairs. All right. Now, conventional financing and appraisal, it's going to be the same thing over here. You want to make sure obtain, assume, fixed, adjustable. Okay, it's a little bit different, but you want to say also here the number of years that they're going to get their loan, and then again, not to exceed, and I put market. Anytime that it asks for interest rate, you put market price, because we don't know, we can give this offer to a seller and they can sit on it for a few days, and by the time that they, ratify the contract and the buyer calls to lock in their rate, the interest rates could be a couple of, things different than what the actual they gave them or what we wrote here. So I just put market. Now, for here, you're going to have the same thing. Financing contingency with auto extension. Financing contingency with auto expiration. All right. Now, here you have an appraisal contingency. All right. So with here, it's either A or B. So I'll kind of go over both. All right, so with this one is the appraisal contingency is going to be 21 days, 14 days. This one was financing. Remember, this is financing. This is where the appraisal will come back. So you can do here, and then you have the same thing. You'll have the negotiation period and then election period. All right. Now, appraisal contingency plus gap guarantee. So you can have an appraisal contingency. Remember, with an appraisal, okay, if you have an appraisal in there, if the house comes back, okay, let's say the house is $400,000 and the house comes back at $390,000. All right, you can go back to the seller and basically say, hey, drop the price to what the appraisal was. Okay. Now, if they don't want to drop it, okay, you can back out. With this gap, it basically says the parties agree that the buyer will pay the difference, if any, between the appraisal price and the sales price, okay, up to the specific amount. So what we used to have to do is when the market was hot in 2021, you had a lot of people that were saying, oh, we want to keep an appraisal, but if it comes lower, we'll give you X amount of dollars over, 10,000 over up until the sales price and cap out at the sales price, right? This is why they added this verbiage on. So you can keep the appraisal on there, but you can add what we call a gap. You can add, hey, if the house is 400,000, let's say the people only have maybe 10,000 to kind of extra. You don't want to waive a total appraisal, because then if the house comes at 370, you don't want to be responsible for that 30,000, right? So you can say, I'll keep the appraisal, but if the appraisal comes low, I can give you an additional 10,000 over whatever the appraised value was up until contract price. Make sense? So you're still telling the seller that I want to keep the appraisal, but if it comes too low, this is basically how much I have to give you over it up until my money's.
So if it comes back to 395, they only have to give 5.
They only get 5.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it won't go over, you can't go over contract price, because then that's different. Yeah. Now, if it comes at 385, then 395 is the max that they'll get if their contract price is 400. Make sense? Okay. So it's saying the appraisal plus whatever gap guarantee here, equal or lesser than the sales value, okay, but the parties will proceed to settlement anyway. Okay. Does that make sense? Because I know a lot of people, that was happening a lot, the gap guarantee. So that's why they added that, but a lot of people are still confused on it. Can you check the comments, the chat? We're good there? Mm-hmm. Okay. Same thing here. Negotiation period with the gap guarantee and election period. All right. Now for FHA, you're going to have the same thing. You're going to have all of this, okay, standard information of the parties. You're going to have the same thing right here, over how many years, not to exceed market price. Now, alternative financing, okay? When you're going with FHA, it's Virginia Housing Authority, okay? Buyer acknowledges, okay, the receipt from HUD. They always encourage a home inspection. When the market is hot, sometimes you did have FHAs that had to waive home inspections, okay? They don't recommend it, but if you wanted your offer one at that time, they would waive it, okay? So this is why you have to make sure all the other contingencies that are there, all right? FHA is the only one that requires these additional buyer initials right here that they know get a home inspection for your protection. Okay. Now you're going to have the same thing here again. Okay. Auto extension. And then also here, auto expiration. Now, same thing with the appraisal provisions. This is basically saying that there's a clause in there. So whatever your contract price, let's say your contract price is $400,000, you are going to right here appraise at the property value no less than 400. So you will put that amount, your contract price that you're offering, you're going to put that here. Now, let's say you have an appraisal contingency in there and the appraisal comes at 390, right? If the appraisal comes at 390, the sellers agree to drop the contract price based off the appraisal. You need to make sure that you come back here, cross it out, write 390, because now that is going to be how much our contract price is, and then your clients are going to need to initial here. Well, buyers and sellers both need to initial, but you just want to make sure that you change it here as well. Same thing here, negotiation period, buyer's election period. Please remember, when you're submitting an offer, you need to make sure that all of these things are filled out, because it's not filled out. They can go in there and just throw in 0 days negotiation, 0 days this, and then you have a problem, okay? So you wanna make sure that you fill in the proper days. Now things, for example, on the first page of the sales contract, things that are not being filled in, like if you're not going to be using seller subsidy, throw 0 in there. That way you don't have another person come in and throw a random number in there, and now you have a contract with one number, they have a contract, and nobody knows whose is right, okay? All right, home inspection. So home inspection contingency, all right? Same thing at the top is going to have all of the information from the parties and the property address. Now, miscellaneous provisions. What has been happening that they had to add this in the past year and a half is when they go to do a home inspection, the utilities are not on in the house. It has happened a lot. So this means that, okay, if for any reason the utilities are not in service, the home inspection or radon testing deadline will extend past whatever days. Usually I throw in 5. Okay? Days after the buyer receives notice from the seller that the utilities are turned on. Because if you have a 7-day home inspection, the seller might not turn it on until day 6. Then you're only going to have 1 day to do your home inspection. That's not fair, right? So we want to have an additional couple of days after they turn it on to get it done. Now, this is going to be very big. Home inspection, and believe it or not, buyers do not know the difference. They think a home inspection is just a basic home inspection and we can just back out, which is great. We want them to know that, but we want them to know the 2 different types, because this, to negotiate repairs or to void, can make or break an offer in comparison with a competitive offer that came in. Now, home inspection with the option to negotiate. This one basically means if we have, do you want me to stop? Yeah. Mm-hmm. If we have an offer, okay, with the home inspection and we get our offer 1, okay, this means that the first 7 days we can go in and do a home inspection. With negotiation means that if the roof is leaking, let's say the garbage disposal needs to be replaced, the HVAC needs, maybe that's broken, we can go to the sellers and say, hey, either you fix it or you give us a credit. Remember on the first page where it says seller subsidy? If the sellers do not want to pay for it, they can say, we'll give you $5,000 towards a new unit, right? Or they can just go ahead and throw a new unit in themselves. So this is where we're going to negotiate with them to do the repairs. Okay, now, this is 2A. 2B means if we go in there and do a home inspection, okay, whether it's 2A or 2B, we're still doing a home inspection. 2A, we can negotiate if there's issues. 2B means that we're doing it for our info only. We cannot go to the homeowners and ask for anything back. We can't ask them to fix anything, nothing. Now, I have gone and said, hey, to kind of save this deal, can you do this? And they will, but they know when they choose this that they're not required to fix anything. So if you do a home inspection to void and you see that the roof is leaking, the garbage disposal is broken, and the HVAC is done and needs to be replaced, for the buyer, that can be a $10,000 cost up front. That way, you can still back out and get your EMD. Nope, the sellers aren't going to fix it. I'm already putting a lot of money into this house. I want to basically back out. Make sense? So this is giving you the option for info purposes to know what's wrong, but you still have a way to back out and get your EMD back. Okay? So 2B, when you're trying to be competitive with another offer, is a little bit stronger than completely waiving. Waiving a home inspection completely is very strong. But this one is the void only is going to be stronger than doing a full home inspection, because it gives the sellers this kind of, oh, we don't have to pay for anything if anything's wrong kind of thing. Make sense? All right, now radon testing. I hope every single agent is familiar with radon. Radon is a gas that comes up from the earth. Usually it comes up in spaces that are disturbed, like in-ground basements. We can have radon in this room and not in that room. If you are in a single family home, this house can have radon. The house next door will not have any radon. Okay. A lot of houses in this area, I don't see too much radon, but I have sold several houses that have radon systems built into the house, and it's great, right? But there is radon testing that can be done. Usually it's done at the same time as the home inspection. They leave a box in there and then come and pick up the box 2 days later. It just collects the air and then they test it for any gases that could be there. Okay, this is all up. Now, if there is radon in the house, there is remediation that needs to be done, and that's where the homeowners would have to fix it. Okay, so when I am presenting a home inspection contingency to my clients, I go over a full home inspection with negotiation or home inspection with the option to void, which is what we call a void only. But I also explain what radon testing is, because believe it or not, a lot of your buyers, sometimes even sellers that own houses, they have no idea the difference between lead paint, radon, asbestos, nothing. So the more you make your client knowledgeable on the home buying process, the more likely it is that they will come back to you and sell your home in the future because you made that experience well for them, okay? You inform them of everything. Same thing here, you're gonna put, I usually put 5 days here, well 7 days right here if you're gonna be doing a home inspection, you want it at the same time. But then here at negotiation, you can do 3 and 2, 5 and 3, whatever days you want. But remember, negotiation period, you want to be able to have a few days in there and then 1 or 2 days for them to also, the election period for them to think about if they wanna stay in the contract because they can't negotiate. All right, so that's all I have for contracts. My next class is going to be on just contingencies and addendums. That's it. So it's going to break down these 4, the 3 FHA, VA, and conventional plus home inspection. All right, and then it's going to go to every single one that's right here.
Just read the chat.
Okay. I'm going to go through all of these additional ones. Where's the chat? Make it bigger? Oh, here? Yes, so even if the buyers, the lenders does not require an inspection, I guess she's talking about the termites. Yeah, termites, carpenter bees, yes. They cannot be visible. I noticed that because when I had termites in my investment property, they were somewhat in the crawl space in the laundry room. I didn't see them. We renovated the house. I had no idea they were there. But sure enough, they were there all the way in the back. So yes, I always recommend, you should always, always, always recommend a termite inspection. That's number 1. But again, we can't force our clients to do anything. We recommend, sometimes if you force, your clients can get upset, which I have had that with them. And I tell them, I recommend you do what's best for you, okay? But always recommend a home inspection. But if it's going to alter the decision of winning or chances of winning, if you are up against other offers that have no contingency and you want to go a full-blown home inspection, you will have to kind of let your client know we could possibly lose our offer because the other offer has nothing, okay? So you always give your clients the option with what you know based off of what the other agent can tell you, and then your client is the one that will ultimately make that decision based off of what works best for them, their family, their finances. But always recommend everything, okay? Yep, and then also same here. You can always ask for sellers to cover certain things. But Farida, sellers, there's no negotiating with sellers for treatment or repair. In the state of Virginia, termite repair and treatment is always the responsibility of a seller. It's never the responsibility of a buyer. Never. Never. Okay. Can we get a... I don't know what dummy data means.
Meaning example contract.
Yeah, I can send out an example. I'll have to make one because I don't want to send one previous that has client information. I can definitely make a sample contract and send it out to everybody. Yep. Any other questions? Does anybody want to unmute themselves and ask anything right now? Oh, we have everybody here. Hi, Aisha.
Hello.
What's up?
All good now? I'm good. Everything great information, lots to learn.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? No? So we are going to have more classes coming up in October, and we will get those. We have the dates, but we just need to confirm exactly what's going to be covered in each one of those classes, and then we will let you guys know. All right?
Sounds good.
Thank you guys for coming. And also, you guys can reach out to me anytime, text, email, call. You know I'm always available.
Thank you, Maya.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You want to exit? Oh, I don't